Hi everyone, it's been a long time since I've made a video, so thought I'd film this. It's sort of an old project that's been put on the back burner quite a lot this year and last year, so finally going to make a start on it and get it out of my or off my list of things to do. So I've got my my father's EB Falcon here, and going back probably 2 years ago I had to replace an ABS module on the car, and I had the car jacked up and there was a lot of grease and oil on the crossmember, and the jack slipped and punched in the bottom of the sump, which then bent the oil pickup tube and filter, and I was able to pull the sump out by welding on some tabs and using a special puller that I made, and we got the sump out, but the tube was still bent inside. So when she first starts up, she's okay, she's a little tappy, then she comes good. And then when you start driving it and it starts really sucking oil up, or trying to suck oil up into the top end of the motor, she starts to get tappy. She's obviously, the filter's bent and sitting probably a little bit above the oil level in the sump. So we need to remove the sump, and to do that there's two options. Either one, we remove the entire engine, but this thing has LPG on it and everything else, or you drop the entire front end. Now, I was lucky, there's a guy on YouTube that's actually made a video in regards to dropping the front end on one of these, so I'm going to use his recommendations to do this one. So as you can see, I've got another sump, an oil pump and a pickup. I bought a short block engine, and I figured, well, you know, the other sump doesn't look the best after everything was pulled out, so I'm just going to put this sump on. It's a lot cleaner, straighter, there's no dings in it. So yep, and then we've got the pickup tube here, which is in really good nick. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to replace the oil pump, because I know that the one on the car does work, and I don't know the condition of this one. So yeah, so I got me seal and I got my gasket kit there as well. I had to buy a new battery for the poor old thing today, because she'd been sitting so long and charged and went flat again, and then I charged her up and basically it was down to 8 cells out of 11, so went and picked up another battery today. The rest of the engine is pretty clean for a 93 model. I pretty much knocked all the oil leaks on the head, got rid of those. Got the car running a lot better. We thought it was, well, my father suspected it was a cracked head gasket, because it was sort of making a p-p-p-p-p-p sound out of the exhaust. But I pulled all the plugs and I put a new set of plugs in it, and she's running like a dream. So yeah, so I've got the car up on ramps at the moment, as you can see, but I've also got the jack stands underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jack the car up from the front, pull the ramps out, because obviously I need to drop the whole front end, and I can't have the I can't have the wheels on if I'm going to do that. So yeah, I'm going to get this thing jacked up and get these ramps pulled out, and we'll come back to the video. Okay, I've got a standard set of jack stands, so I've put them up on the 4th notch, and I needed to find a good place to jack this up so I could get the wheel clear of the ramp. So just under this this torque box here at the front is probably your best bet. It doesn't need to be up for very long, just long enough to get the wheel off and the ramp out, and then it'll get lowered back down onto this jack stand here. So guys, just be careful. Don't forget to chock your your back wheels as well. You just don't want it rolling back, or backwards or forwards. So yeah, just be safe. So as you can see, the wheel's off, ramp's there, so just move the ramp out. Now we should be able to let this down back onto the jack. Let's take it nice and slow. And there we go. So that's one side done. We'll just repeat the same thing on the other side, and then we'll get back onto the vid. Okay guys, there's a plug here that connects to the power steering rack. It has a little wire clip on it. You want to pull that back and disconnect that plug. That's the clip there guys. I just used a pair of long nose pliers. Really simple. And there's the plug off the switch. Next thing you want to do is you want to take out the bolt in the steering uni or steering knuckle, because you need to disconnect your steering column from the rack. Okay guys, to get the bolt out in that steering knuckle, steering universal, just using a 10mm socket, using a flex joint. I'm opting for a longer extension bar, but if you've only got a half size one, you can use that, and just me ratchet. Your bolt might be in a different position, where you might need to use a couple of different extensions on your ratchet, but this is the setup for mine. Okay, that's the bolt when it's out. As you can see, this was actually put in with some Loctite, so you want to put some Loctite back on it when you reinstall it. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you want to undo your power steering lines. So you want to take this hard line out from the back of the power steering pump. Now expect to lose some fluid, so if you've got an ice cream container or a small container, stick that under the outlet so you can catch it and it doesn't make a mess everywhere. And this is your soft line, which is your return line. You want to take it off from down here, not from off the pump. It's a little harder to take it off the pump, so take it off this this steel line here. Okay, before you undo those power steering lines, make sure you put something down on the floor that will catch the oil or fluid should you drop it. So I'm just using an ice cream container here. As soon as I release the nut, I'm going to stick the ice cream container straight underneath it to catch all the fluid. Okay, once you've disconnected the return line, it will only drain out what's in the hose, obviously, because that's pretty much going to be your max height. Now what you want to do is either find a bolt that will fit into the end of the hose and screw the bolt in so that you won't lose any fluid, or if you've got one of these, it's a hose clamp. You can actually use a hose clamp on your hose. You squeeze and slide your clips back. Now hopefully that will be enough to stop it from leaking, and it'll hold, that will hold it up so you don't get any more fluid leaking out. So one thing I did before I disconnected it was I also put down a piece of rag there, because you will get a little bit coming out of that hard line as well. Okay, as you can see, I've got the hard line out of the back of the pump. It is draining a little bit, so I'll just leave that there, drain for maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes, and then yeah, I should be able to remove the ice cream container. The spanner you want to use for your line, your hard line on the back of your power steering pump is a 16mm. As you can see, you will lose a little bit of power steering fluid. So yeah, just make sure you put some cardboard down here, or some wood chips, or sawdust or something to catch the oil. An important thing you want to do too is right below your pump you've got your alternator, so make sure you cover your alternator up so you don't get any transmission fluid running inside the alternator. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you want to take your split pin out of your tie rod, and you want to take your split pin out of your ball joint there. Okay, to undo the nut on the tie rod, I'm using a 19mm ring spanner. Now you can use an open ender. You won't be able to use a socket unless you remove the brake caliper, because it sits just a little bit too close to the caliper. Okay, when knocking at the tie rod, just be patient. It doesn't always want to drop in the first half a dozen blows, but if you just keep working your way around here, around the arm, it'll eventually free itself. Okay, for the ball joint nut, you want to use a 21mm, and you want to give this a couple of heavy blows. You can be more delicate with the tie rod, but with this one you've really got to put some power into those blows to break it free. And for the strut bolt, you want to use also a 21mm on there. As you can see, I left the nut on there just as a bit of reassurance, just in case something decided it wanted to drop, but everything looks pretty good. Now, as you can see, we've got this control arm swinging now, and the shock's out as well, so we have to do the same on the other side. Okay, the next thing you want to undo, once you've got all these floating on both sides, you want to get your sway bar link undone. So you don't have to undo it on both sides. You can just undo it from the bottom, and everything then should just slide down over it. The socket and the spanner you want to be using for that's a 14mm. Okay, as you can see, the top nut came undone, the bottom nut didn't budge, so I'm hoping that I can, once I undo these bolts here for the sway bar, that I'll be able to slip this up and over the shaft. If not, just get a shifting spanner, put it on the flat sides of this shaft, and then just undo the bottom. Okay, I've taken out I've taken the nuts off each side, and then I've taken a bolt out of these sway bar cradles, and yeah, that should be enough. You shouldn't need to take the whole sway bar out. It doesn't look like it's going to interfere with anything here, so we'll see how we go. Okay, we're about ready to take some weight off the motor. So I've got my engine crane set up here, and the thing I'm going to be using to lower the cross member down is my motorbike lifting jack. Now, not everyone's going to have one of these, so you could probably do it with a trolley jack and a piece of board across the top of it, and that would probably work. You just need to be very careful it doesn't fall off on one side. So in order to get this engine lifted, we've got to get the engine mount bolts undone. Now, on the head side of the engine mount bolt, that's going to be a 14mm, and on the nut side, that's tongue tied today, must be the heat, that's a 13mm. So it's a pretty difficult place to get into. There's not a lot of room. On the 6-cylinder, the oil filter side, so the passenger side, it's a lot tighter than the driver's side, so I've opted to go with the driver's side first, just to get a feel of what I'm in for. Okay, when you're undoing these engine bolts, I found it easier to use 2 ratchet spanners, so a 13 and a 14 mil, and you'll find that it's really tight when you first start off and you get some movement on the nut. You get it running and then it'll tighten up for pretty much half of that thread, and it's a real battle. There's no easy way to do it, but yeah, it shouldn't be as hard to put back in once you clean your threads up. Bit of CRC or WD-40 and she should be right to go. Okay, I cleaned up the bolts and the nuts on the wire wheel on my grinder, so then I took my impact wrench and spanner and I RP7. I just ran it back and forward a few times to get it moving really nicely. And that's it. Clean bolts. Okay, we've got 2 16mm bolts here. There's one tucked in there behind the brake line, so unfortunately you either disconnect the brake line or you use a probably use a ratchet spanner. You should be able to just get it started and then be able to slide the ratchet part over it. And then there's another one just in behind the strut tower here, so that's also a bit of an awkward one, but we'll wait and see how it goes. Okay, these as I said, these bolts are very hard to get out, so I opted to just crack the brake line and pull it out, and then I just used a breaker bar to break the Loctite that was on the thread, and then I just used my my rattle gun impact driver to get the rest of the bolt out. Now we move to the back one. Okay, to get this back bolt out, I used a ring spanner and I used a hammer, a heavy lump hammer, and I just bashed it up until it came loose, and then used a ratchet spanner to wind it the rest of the way out. Okay, the next thing you want to do is loosen these 2 bolts here. I don't think it makes a great deal of difference, but it certainly helps pull that bracket away from the chassis so it won't get caught up on anything. And the other thing you need to take out is the front stone tray from under here. It's only 2 screws, not a big deal. As you can see, we've already dropped this significantly, so I'm hoping it drops out now. Okay, as you can see, the front end's out, but there is a cable at the back there that needs to be unclipped, so don't go pulling your front end out until you unclip that cable. Okay, the front end's out. One thing I forgot to mention is you need to, that cable that was attached to the back here, you need to unbolt it from the starter motor, because it's sort of routed through these pipes here, so you can't actually get it out. Okay, we've got 2 transmission lines there. They normally sit on the other side of the engine mount, closer to the sump, but there is enough give in them that you can pull them out of the way to get to your sump bolts, and this that little kick up on the engine mount will hold them in place, which is really good. Okay, as you can see, this front bracket is bent right up, so that would have been keeping the filter out of the oil at the front, and that's probably why we weren't getting any oil up to the top end. Okay, you can really see how this oil pickup got crushed when the sump got punched in. You can see that this is really low compared to this. This tube is facing down compared to this one, which is pretty much face on. You can see it's all concaved in here, so that's a good inch, maybe 25 mil, maybe even a fraction more. So that's why we weren't picking oil up. Okay, new pickups installed, looks much better, so hopefully no more problems. Okay, I've given a few of the parts a bit of a clean down. Still got to do the sway bar. Just did this this panel just quickly, and the cross member. Got to go over this a second time, but it's pretty clean. Got most of the grease and the build up off it. You can actually see the original Ford factory paint marks on it now, which is very cool. Just washed this down with some prep wash, and I'm just going to give it a coat of black. Nothing too super, but just cover up all that bare metal. Presto! Okay, day 3, we're going to put the oil pan on today. So I've got my new gasket and run a thin bead of silicone along the pan. I've got to go across the top of the gasket yet, but one thing I'm finding, it is the correct oil pan gasket set, but I'm finding that these rubber end gaskets tend to sit a bit proud. They're a little bit high. They may squish down when I tighten up the sump, but probably be aware of that. I don't know if you can see that gasket sitting up. There is a little slot cut into the top of the rubber for the little tab on the gasket to sit into, but when you do that, it sits a little proud. So I'm just hoping it's the compression of this that pulls the gasket down, which I'm pretty sure that's what would happen. Okay, new oil pan installed, and we're getting ready to put the front end back in. Okay, the front end's back in. Only the 4 main bolts for the cross member. Nothing here's been done up. One thing you want to be really careful of is when you lift your front end, that your tie rods are clear. I actually had the tie rod coming through the strut cradle here, and I had to back the nuts off on the chassis to drop the front end to get it out again. So just be wary of that. Be wary of your battery cable. You need to sort of route that between the power steering hard lines and also the main hard line off the back of the pump. You've got to make sure that you get this out. Sorry if it's too dark, guys. You've got to get this out so it doesn't sort of get caught in behind there, because it's only got so much give and only bends so far. So yeah, I'd really like to put oil in the engine and start the car and make sure there's no leaks before I go any further, but yeah, a bit hard. Another thing you might be able to do as well when you're lifting the front end in is get the steering knuckle located on the rack. It's not a biggie. I've just worked out that I can't get it onto the rack now, so what I've got to do is I've got to back the top bolt up, which will allow the shaft to slide inside the tube or along the spline tube. Then I could pop it back down, put the bolt in, and then tighten it. Tighten that top bolt again. So yeah, just a couple of things you want to be mindful of, because they do get in the way. Okay, I've got the engine mount bolts back in, and I haven't got anything else in the way of the suspension or steering hooked up yet, and I haven't torqued any of the mounting bolts for the K cross member. What I want to do is I want to now, at this stage, I want to drop it down, get everything a little more level. I'm going to put oil in it, and I'm going to make sure there's no leaks, because if there's leaks I've got to pull everything apart again. So I'm not going to commit to doing the job 100% and then get disappointed and have to pull it all apart again. So yeah, but we'll jack the car up, let it down, fill it up with oil, and see how we go. Okay, we got the car running. Just got to wait a few minutes and see if we get any oil leaks underneath. Okay, one thing that I ended up realising when I was reassembling this was that if you just slip the clip off, you don't actually have to undo the brake line. There's enough room to get the bolt in and out. So yeah, you don't need to break your seal on your brake line. Okay, when doing these bolts up, do them up first. Don't do up the ones down here. Keep them backed off. Otherwise, you'll be out of alignment and you'll never get these bolts in. So do these ones up first and then adjust that plate and then tighten. Okay, everything's finished. Split pins went in the ball joints and the tie rod ends, don't forget those. And went round and did a little bit of cable tying here and there where I needed to, especially that starter motor to battery positive lead. You'll need to re-cable tie that to the back of the cross member. And that's about it. Everything's been torqued up to spec and it'll be good to get rid of it. Thanks for coming on this little journey with me to get this fixed. So a total of 3 days it's taken me to get all this sorted. I imagine it would take a lot less time with a second person. So if you can grab a mate to give you a hand, grab one. So until the next vid, guys, stay safe and Merry Christmas.